maybe mathematics is signs from above, because we didn't invent mathematics. It's always been there. We might have invented the symbols. We might, what we call the number two and stuff, but two is two. It will always be two. It always has been two. So mathematics does seem, like Galileo Galilei said, to be the language that God has created in. According to Galileo Galilei, mathematics is the language with which God wrote the universe, and we can see patterns in Pi, Phi, snowflakes, but we can't see everything. Our vision is limited to 7 colors, so we can imagine higher dimensions, but we have trouble visualizing them. But luckily, we've got things like microscopes, so we can see that where we can double in math, we can also see doubling in the formation of cells. Just like I say, with a microscope, we can see how snowflakes show perfect geometry. And after that, I'd like to show you the Wheel of Fortune, which I like to call the Phi wheel.
You're essentially the toughest question of all. It's that, isn't it? What is creation and what's running it and all of that. And but that's why when you were telling me, I was like, wow, this is really big. You know what I mean? This could be everything. So
yeah,
is that what you see it as?
You hit the nail on the head. That's what I wanted to say a minute ago, but it escaped my mind. It's literally like looking at the Matrix. We're looking at the code of reality.
Welcome, Howard. Welcome to a deeper conversation, my friend.
Hi, Chad. Thanks for having me on.
So your work is amazing. And before we get into depths of that, who are you? What are you about, and how did you get to this place?
Exactly. My name is Howard George Stirrup, and I was lucky to realize that the globe is a lie in I think about 2016. So I became a flat earther for a while, and then I was very lucky to find Harry McDonald on YouTube with the channel John Smith Globe Lie, and he goes out and has conversations with people, and he doesn't preach a model. He doesn't say flat earth. He says the globe lie. He doesn't know what it is, so he's not carrying the burden of proof. Mm-hmm. So I realized that was a very good position to hold, rather than jump from one belief system directly into another. And also that his the action that he was taking, activism, face-to-face street interviews and conversations, was the best action to take. So I got myself a phone holder, or first a stand, and I went out and I copied his questions, asking people on a scale of 1 to 10, how open-minded are you? And when they give a high number, you ask them if you can test that. And then you take it from there, asking them what they believe, why they believe it, and if they have any evidence to back it up. And he saw my videos and congratulated me on doing a good job. So I was in communication with him. I went to work with him in Edinburgh, and then I did a little bit myself in the UK, in England, and then I jumped on the Euro Globe the Euro Globe Lie Tour of 2019, and went through Spain, Portugal, Gibraltar, with some other activists. And thanks to Harry getting me on activism, I was lucky to then have contact from Mike Wilkerson, who you know, who taught me about the petrified organs and the giant trees and Titan that look like they've petrified into mountains. And also, thanks to Harry and the activism, I met my mathematician friend, who's taught me all about the numbers and the patterns that we see in the numbers. So I mustn't take credit for this work. It's my friend's, but he doesn't want to be named. He prefers to be anonymous. So I'm lucky to present it to the best of my abilities, but I am not the mathematician that had this divine revelation. But I'm happy to say that he did have a divine revelation, like yourself and many people, Tesla, Nikola Tesla. When we ask, and Mike Wilkerson, when we ask for help and guidance, we often get it. And this information came out of thin air. Let's just say it like that. You can't come to these conclusions on your own. He was definitely blessed. He doesn't like me saying that, but divinely inspired.
So a fantastic journey. So lead us to where this has led to. Take us to the heart of it now.
Yeah, well, my mathematician friend literally came to Spain to teach me this, because he said that he liked what I was doing for Mike by promoting Mike's work in between doing activism about Globe Lie. He said it might be a great way to help atheists realize that there's lots of evidence of intelligent design. If they can't see it in nature because they're so academic, then let's show them in the numbers, because that way it'll be appealing to a different crowd. And it's been great, because I've been inserting these bits of information into debates that I've been having. And I've also luckily got the big cardboard cutout of the mechanism that my friend made that he's left with me. So I've been showing people face to face, as well as the debates. I've made flyers of some of the work that I'm going to show you today, so that people can, if not check it out on a video, they can literally color in the numbers on paper and learn about it on a flyer, and then hand it out to other people, and other people can learn about it. So yeah, the beauty is that we can talk about these things face to face, we can give out flyers, and we can also show people like the videos on YouTube, because this information should be public knowledge, but it isn't. Just like sacred geometry and 369 vortex math and lots of stuff. So I feel like it's up to us to make it public knowledge. And my next step after making the videos with you, and hopefully at other people, will be to take on a market stall where I'm going to have a collection of pebbles to show the correlations with the anatomy of the heart. I'm going to have lots of flyers and little toys to show and explain people about the globe lie and how it doesn't make sense for you to fly eastbound or westbound and it be the same speed, or to fly over the North Pole in a 12-hour flight and not land in the same place after 12 hours it's supposed to have rotated. So the globe lie, petrified organs, and definitely the cardboard cutout of the mathematical mechanism we like to call the Phi wheel, the wheel of fortune, because it looks like it shows the 6 days of creation and what would be the 7th day to rest, or the end days. That's how my friend interprets it, and that's how I see logic in it too. So hopefully I'll either carry this information on or I'll be challenged and maybe someone will be able to change my position. I'm always ready to change my mind if better evidence is presented.
And what is it? So a summary of this cardboard cutout that you've put it in the best possible way. If you had to start off a paper and you had to explain all what it does, what it represents, how would you put it?
Yeah, I see the mathematics of Phi, the golden ratio, the golden spiral, the golden rectangle. I see it all throughout nature. First, I'll go through the results of multiplication and also the results of the division table, how when we reduce those numbers and mirror them 360, we actually find patterns from the numbers that we also see in nature outside, which I think's mind-blowing. And after that, I'd like to show you the Wheel of Fortune, which I like to call the Phi wheel, which we know that we see Phi, the rate of construction, the golden ratio of construction, in our own bodies, just like we see in pineapples and sunflowers. So when we can see patterns in the Fibonacci sequence from Phi, that tells me that it's evidence, signs from above, that there is a creator, there's an intelligent designer behind all of this. Because we hear about there being 6 days of creation with 1 day for rest. Well, funny enough, my friend that was inspired with this Phi wheel has seen that there is exactly 6 stages in the Phi mechanism, and then it looks like there's a final 7th day to rest, which I imagine is the end days. Now, maybe people can come to different conclusions than this. I'm always ready to change my mind. So if anyone out there does have any information, whether it's to add to this or counter this, please do get in touch with me. I'm really interested to learn more.
So to take it further, this model, I'm presuming, can explain on a micro, macro, the realm, days of the week, the year, the cycle of life itself, potentially a reset, as in times biblical. Is it all encompassing in terms of?
I think so. I think this is a lot bigger than we've even realized, because my friend that showed me this, that made the cardboard cutout that I'm going to present until I can get someone to make graphically, he's also been finding patterns in what we know as E, the Euler's number, and he's also in that behind the decimal places, and he's also found many patterns in pi, in the actual 3.14159. He's found that the zeros in pi, coincidentally maybe, but they all have lots of relevance with the story of Jesus Christ, with prime numbers, the positions and the order and the sum of the digits until that number. There's lots and lots of patterns in pi, as well as we'll see in phi, as well as we'll see in the results of multiplication, the results of division. So it's as if numbers are powerful. Just like we know frequencies and vibrations are powerful. Well, frequencies of what? It's how many times. It's the number, really, that I think is behind everything. So we're just scratching the surface, but by putting this information out there, I believe more people can get involved in the open source investigation and contribute more to this research, because I believe that it's literally there for us to discover and to share. And it makes me wonder why we don't learn a lot about these things like sacred geometry and stuff in school, because I would have found math a lot more interesting if I'd known about these things when I was young.
Yeah, bang on, mate. But we know the reason, really, don't we?
Yeah, but we don't want to be conspiracy theorists. They've got such a bad name nowadays, you know. I like to think of myself as a critical thinker, or a pattern recognition, but nah, people just call it conspiracy theory. If you find anything that's not shown as mainstream, you're a nut job. But
mate, we're nut jobs together.
Yeah.
Once you fight modern society, that's what you've got to be prepared for. And a warrior like yourself, mate, it seems like you'll just take it on the chin and keep going.
Yeah, my skin, I never realized how thick my skin was until I started doing activism, and especially the online debates. You know, it doesn't always go the way you want, but I look at it as the whole. You know, to win a war, you have to have battles, and some of them you might not come out always on top, but it's about putting the information out there so that other people can find it, and then other people, like I say, can contribute, and we can all learn from each other by putting out the information. The truth will only set us free if we're there pushing it. We can't expect it to do all the work.
My brother. I love that. So, you know, I mean, if you watch many of my videos, I'm really into movies. Just before we go on, this to me sounding like, you know, The Matrix, the movie The Matrix with the code.
So when I show you the results of multiplication and division, I like to think that that's quantum physics in a simple form. We're looking at the quantities behind the physicality of nature. And then when we look at the Phi wheel, the mechanism that my friend made from the Phi Fibonacci sequence, I like to see that as the world clock, because where we're seeing, I don't want to say too much now, but where we're seeing just 60 digits, those 60 digits are actually just the tail number, the end number of the ever-growing infinite number sequence from Fibonacci, which can go up and down. So I guess we're looking at the world mathematically as a whole, kind of like from an external higher dimension. In a sense, we're getting to see how Earth was made, how Earth is at this moment, like how we see the Phi, the Fibonacci sequence now is what I would call the present, but the Fibonacci number sequence maybe wasn't always that way. In other words, we're seeing how it started and how it will end, and where we are right now. It really seems like that, because my friend Mike always says, how many coincidences does it take for a theory to be too impossible for it to be coincidence? How many? There's got to be a limit to how many coincidences before everyone snaps and says, yeah, that's not a coincidence. So I personally think this can't be coincidence, because I've counted over 10, which you could even say is more, but I've reduced it to 10 things where you say, yeah, these 10 things can't all be coincidence, but I could be wrong. So yeah, if anyone out there can advise me otherwise, I'm really open to constructive criticism.
At the end of the day, you aren't saying this is that and I know it all. You're constructing this and you're learning at the same time, but you know it's not complete. It's like you've got the majority of the jigsaw puzzles, or you know the outline or the framework, you know, but you consider that you might be missing a little bit of the middle still or something. Do you know what I mean? And that's quite true. I love that attitude, you know, anyway, myself. So
I think since we all started this hunger for truth, this thirst for knowledge, I think we can probably all agree that the more you learn, the more questions there are to answer. It's like a never-ending rabbit hole. It's like every door you open, you find there's more doors behind that door. So it's to me, that's the adventure of life. There will always be more to answer. Our finite minds have an infinite playground, I think.
I love the synchronicity of how all this is coming together. I had a chat the other day with Tara, Michelle, and Campbell from Dialectic, and Michelle Gibson, and we were talking about like how we seem to be on a change, and we were using the example of a spiral, funny enough, and it's quite coincidental how now you've come along with this almost structure to explain what we're going through. And the spiral, the Fibonacci, makes complete sense, because we know a circle exists, it repeats itself, but it wouldn't just go round and round, it would it would go off like a spring, almost like a spiral, like a Fibonacci. So that I love how and then I told you about the apple, but I won't go
Yeah.
into that. You've definitely come at the right time, mate, and I feel we've got a lot to do.
I also agree with you there. When we're looking now at this wheel or this world clock, we're looking at a circle, but it's like you say, we're just looking at a 2D version of something that's actually very, I don't even want to say 3D, I prefer to say multi-dimensional.
Yeah.
And we're just like looking at a photograph from above, like a moment in time. But because of the stages, we're looking at the previous moments in time, and we can imagine the next set, which would probably be the end days or the reset. It's funny because you can say reset for a clock as well.
Yeah. Perfect, mate. It's perfect. So, do you want to jump in?
I'll just jump into it.
Yes, bro.
Okay. So I'm hitting play. So according to Galileo Galilei, mathematics is the language with which God wrote the universe. And we can see patterns in Pi, Phi, snowflakes, but we can't see everything. Our vision is limited to 7 colors. So we can imagine higher dimensions, but we have trouble visualizing them. But luckily, we've got things like microscopes, so we can see that where we can double in math, we can also see doubling in the formation of cells. Just like I say, with a microscope, we can see how snowflakes show perfect geometry. So we can see perfect geometry in nature, just like we can see with CGI perfect geometry and fractals when we look at the Mandela set. Or we can also see how the Fibonacci spiral, the golden spiral, grows in squares and quarter circles, just like we see fractals in the Romanesco broccoli. So here we can see the pi sequence, and we can see that the zeros seem to have value in different ways. Here, I recommend people take a screenshot because there's lots and lots of pattern in the pi sequence itself, which tells me it's not just a coincidence. And even the sum, we can find 111, 222, everything except for one number, which appears in E, Euler's number. So we could maybe talk about that another time. But just to go back into the doubling, when we're doubling, we can use the mechanism known as the vortex math, which we see we can double 1 to 2, we double 2 to 4, we can double 4 to 8, 8 to 16, 1 plus 6 is 7. So we keep going around the vortex mathematic wheel, and we can make an infinite sign because it goes on infinitely. We double 16 to 32, 3 and 2 equals 5. We double 32, it's 64. 6 plus 4 is 10, which goes back to 1. So we find many uses, like as a hand calculator, this vortex mathematic wheel. And we never, ever, ever need to use 3, 6, or 9. It's as if they don't have to work. It's as if they have a higher position than the other numbers, maybe an authority. We can also use it like clockwise, where we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 equals 1, 11 back to 2, 12 equals 3, and like that you can keep going round and round as well. So there's many ways we can see numbers and make patterns from them. We can imagine that our whole world is made up of mathematics. Like we were saying, maybe it's the matrix behind everything in our torus field. So if we look at the mathematics results from the mathematics table that we remember from school, but reduce the numbers to 1 digit, it's called the digital root. And then we have to mirror the results around, just like a kaleidoscope uses mirrors to formulate a full picture from just a part. We take the results from number 1 and we mirror them around by flipping them vertically. And then I'll have to speed this up, I guess. And then we flip those results horizontally and then vertically again. And we find a full picture. And we can do this for number 1, for the results that equal 1. We can do it for the results that equal 2. And all the multiplication results that equal 3 will give us a different pattern again, which looks more like a flower. And then we can go through the numbers and we find a completely different pattern for each number. That looks a little bit similar to the chemist, the pharmacy logo, and it makes squares around the cross. But if we multiply more than 10 by 10, if we say we go up to 30 and reduce those numbers, then we actually find that the picture also continues. So if we look at 5, 10 by 10, we can see another kind of crossroads. But if we look at it by 30 by 30, we see that the pattern doesn't stop and it doesn't get distorted. It continues to mirror out infinitely. So we look at 6. Now 3 gave us a bit of a flower, so does 6. 6 is a little bit more complicated, as we can see when we look at the 30 by 30 version. And 7 seems to be a very important number because it's how we get to pi from the 9 digits, 1 to 9. We use 22 divided by 7 to get pi. So 7 seems to hold a special position too. And it also gives a really good pattern when we blow it up. But the difference between all the numbers is probably number 9. Because as we can see, 8 continues that kind of drop in a pond where you see the rippling effect. But 9 seems to make like a net, especially when you multiply more than 10 by 10. You'll see that it continues to be a net, no matter how much you zoom out, how many results you multiply. So when we mix 3, 6, and 9, we find that those flowers actually help to form a cage. As you can see in a bigger multiplication result, it's a very big cage. I made them all the same color just for people to help visualize it. So 3, 6, and 9 definitely have some kind of relationship. They work together. And so do other numbers. I can put 4, 6, and 8. Or I can put my birthday, 1983. They all work together, but it looks like 3, 6, and 9 are more powerful, or they have a hold on the other numbers. And the same happens when we take the division results and we make all the different numbers into reduced digits again, the digital roots. We find that we get a first stage for each number. Here's the number 7. If we look at the mixed results, and if we just look at the results at the top and mirror them, we get a completely different pattern. And then if we look at the results from the bottom of the yellow line, which is where each number is divided by itself, we get another pattern. So if we put the 2 digits together, we then get a new pattern showing that they're still working in harmony. And if you notice, there's like a little man with a head and arms and legs. And then we find the results from adding them together gives us another pattern. And if we put all the results together, those little men now have bigger arms, bigger shoulders, and longer legs. And we get that for each number again. But as always, number 9 gives us a net, and 3, 6, and 9 gives us a cage. So even in division, we see a similar functionality. 1 seems to have arrows pointing towards the center, and so does 1, 3, 6, 9, and 8, and 2, which we found maintain the same position throughout all of the 7 stages. And they also seem to be pointing to the center, like a Mandela drawing that we find in carpets and ancient depictions in temples. So here's the results of number 2, what we call the 6th stage, the results of 7 plus 8 in the 6th stage. You can probably see little faces whether you're looking in the middle or lower down. And you can also see that upside down gives at the top gives faces. Here you can see a cyclops with arms and a screaming mouth. And if you look at the bottom section, it looks like a flying ghost face. Now, this could all be coincidence. It could be pareidolia. But funny enough, not only Mandalas, but even board games seem to have this format. So it's as if board games and mandalas have been inspired from this higher dimension, or maybe people that did the board games and mandalas were aware of these higher dimensions and the functions behind our reality. It's all up for debate, but that's why we're sharing this information, because hopefully with more people looking into it and helping produce these pictures from the math, because we've only managed to get up to 50 by 50, and I'm still using Photoshop to draw out the patterns, although I'm aware with people that are skilled in Excel and maybe other programs, they could probably get them to generate much faster, and we could see what 100 times 100 or up to 100 divided by 100 images look like. So that's where I'm hoping people can help us get to in the future, that we'll be able to keep finding more patterns from the results from division and multiplication, because I don't believe it's just coincidence. I would expect some kind of distortion, especially from reducing the numbers, the results to the digital root. You wouldn't expect there to be a persistent, non-conflicting pattern coming out of each number, but you do.
It's just amazing. That is really, really fantastic. Wow. Okay. So there's so many places to go with it, isn't there?
I'm glad you like it, because a lot of people, they say, oh, that's what happens when you plot things out and mirror them round. And I'm like, yeah, but you wouldn't expect such consistency. Each number seems to give like two eyes and a mouth in the top and bottom, whether it's upside down, because the top is going upwards, the bottom's going down. So it's like they're upside down from each other, but they still give a face. And every number does that. And then when you start playing with the division results, like you saw, you actually get figures with arms and legs for each number.
They actually look like, you know, like out of Pac-Man and old games like Space Invaders.
And Super Mario Brothers, where he's got them little ghost. And I'm thinking, has this inspired the people that made the video games to make these characters that we resonate with? For some reason, as a child, I loved these pictures that the Mario Brothers and, like you say, Space Invaders had. Or is it that maybe some people know about this and they're using this to make the video games and the board games and the mandalas more addictive, more...
Yeah.
Could be. I mean, that's speculation, but the one thing's for sure, I'm seeing faces and figures in these patterns for every number.
Well, you know, what's interesting as well, when we consider, I feel like this is backing up two things. You could either say it's backing up a grand creator, or in a modern term, it's backing up a simulation theory to a degree as well, because we just look at how our flashing lights are programmed. Those patterns that you saw, like the flowers and everything, you know, like when you go to these lights attractions at Christmas and they've got, obviously it's all done by numbers as well, isn't it? This is what you've got to think. Computers is all code. So we're looking at the code of life here, and every single number creates an image, like with cymatics, like with the sound, and if you put it on, it's creating an image.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's
beautiful. I've never saw that though, mate. I'll be honest with you, I've never saw that, and it's brilliant. You're right.
I mean, wouldn't you have enjoyed multiplication and division a lot more if you knew that there was actual beauty behind the results, not just number? It also has something eye-catching to it. And like, there's two things I'd like to say. You were right about the computers. Computer programming relies on zeros and ones. Nature has got 9 digits. You know, computers are a little bit behind. Maybe that's what quantum computers are trying to do, you know, work with 9 digits or something. But you can't beat nature, just like you can't beat the biological computers. I don't think we'll ever beat them. And the one other thing I meant to say, where we saw the multiplication from a distance, when you multiply more digits, then they remain constant. They mirror forever. They never distort, but they continue to echo out forever in the same pattern, in the same direction. Whereas the division results are forever changing. They never distort, but the more you multiply, the more you divide, the more digits you divide, the more details come, and they seem to be forever changing. So where you see a face and a figure, if you keep multiplying, or shall I say dividing, you'll actually see different figures, different faces. And I've even seen what looks like people praying, and another one looks like people sat at a table. It's very, very interesting.
In a sense, it's actually telling a story. You know, like it's telling a story through the images. And also, when we look at reality and what we're in, and we can constantly see this division in everything, divisions down the countries, divisions in football teams, divisions, religion. I know every single thing they can pit us against, they do. And then you're showing this in the actual numbers. That's making sense, isn't it? And the more that they divide us, the more complicated reality gets. Yes. Do you want? And the way I used to explain this, it was like I hit a mirror, I hit a glass, and every time you crack the glass more, the more lines that come, the more complicated it come, and you're backing it up now with this. Is great.
Just like the split personalities, alter egos, they can install more things. So it looks like multiplication, I would imagine, is the higher dimensions. So like angels, they can't sin. In other words, they always remain true to the original pattern, where division is the lower dimensions because it goes into the negatives. And like you say, it's just a never-ending story that maybe that's our free will. The more time we have, the more you can calculate. The more you can calculate, the more there is to see to this reality. It's definitely something along. I'm on a similar kind of conclusion to you there, yeah.
For those that don't see, in man is the higher and the lower. The higher is seen as human spirit clothed with soul made in the form of God. And the lower self, the carnal self, is the body of desires, is a reflection of the higher self but distorted by the murky ethers of flesh. The lower self is illusion, is mind, is thought, is of the world and will pass away. The higher self is God in man and will not pass away. The higher self is an embodiment of truth, and the lower self is truth reversed, so is falsehood manifest. The higher self is justice, mercy, love and righteousness. The lower self is what the higher self is not. The lower self breeds hatred, slander, envy, jealousy, want, desire, and everything that harms and is or selfish. Whereas the higher self is the mother and the harmonies of life. The lower self is rich in promise but lacks anything of worth. It gives unrest and misery. It gives men and women apples that are lovely to the eye and pleasant to smell, but their cores are rotten and bitter. On my example, the higher self is the pure, fresh apple covered by the lower self of sugar cane toffee, hiding the beauty and the freshness of the apple. Truth being covered by falsity.
Look, mate, it's fantastic. At the end of the day, a lot of what I talk about come from like an awakening perspective and thinking outside the box. But this is actually putting science to it. And also, like when you do go into meditations and, you know, taking it a bit deeper, when you take hallucinogenics and psychedelics, the patterns that you've shown are a lot of the things that you see. You know, the fractals, it's a fractal kind of existence. So
And we're just looking at a slice. We're looking at a 2D version of these results.
Yeah.
I imagine that if somebody has got the way to calculate it or to render it into a 3D image,
Wow,
then you could probably see more of these images. So it's getting more results and possibly mapping it out on another axis so that we're not just looking down at it from above, but maybe we can look at it from all around if they could make a 3D composite of these results. So that's why I'm putting the information out for my friend, because he wants more people to be aware so that people that have got the know-how can take this to the next level, because this is definitely... we're looking at the fabric, we're looking at the code of nature. Yeah, that's like you say, when people astral project, lucid dream, or they're meditating deep enough, it's very, very likely that people have seen these images, and that's why they resonate with us. That's why the video games are so addictive, like I say, because they're using images that we all inherently know somehow. It's even without seeing them with our eyes, we just resonate with them. They have an effect on us, just like you say with cymatics. We can now, that people are starting to translate dolphin language by recording the dolphins speaking, put it into cymatic patterns, and getting AI and stuff to decode what the cymatic pattern might mean. It's very interesting times, and it seems that a lot of things are interwoven.
Fantastic, mate. So one question I have got, if you could understand this fully, or to get a grip on it and understand, could you predict or understand where we're going, and almost, I don't know to what exact point, but almost predict the future, or have a good idea of it? If you could understand how the pattern is forming.
I have a feeling that the people... They always say that the military have got technology 20 to 50 years ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a feeling that if they knew about this, which I'm sure they did a long time ago, that would probably be why they create the AI and the quantum computers, because they're probably trying to get as much information and decode it as possible for exactly what you've just said, to either predict the future or to at least maximize on the present by having greater understanding on what influences us and what is in nature mathematically and geometrically. There's definitely something to this, because it's very strange that we aren't taught this in school. You'd expect this to be part of, high school or even primary school mathematics. It's not that hard to reduce numbers and then to draw them out with different colors. It's so easy. So I think that, the people that know about this have probably been at it for a long time. And I also wonder if, like we saw, there's patterns in the pi number sequence, the digits. The pi number is infinite. It's never gonna end. So maybe they're trying to make computers that are fast enough to try and get ahead of time, if that makes sense. So there's only so much time before the end days. Maybe they're trying to figure out pi, because that also might give them a lot of stories, because the first 0 in the pi sequence is on the 33rd position. And we know there's 33 vertebrae in the spine, Jacob's ladder. We know that Jesus was crucified on the 33rd year of his life. So it takes 33 years for the creator to live a perfect life cycle. Maybe that's why pi has its first 0 on 33. Again, speculation, but
Wow.
It's very likely that there's a lot more to these numbers and geometric patterns than we know. And the powers that be are way ahead of us, but that doesn't mean that we can't share the information. If not, we might never catch up with them. I personally don't think we should have so much knowledge. I think that it goes against faith. But on the idea that there's so many atheists out there because they've been indoctrinated with misconceptions, total, scientific models that aren't demonstrable. So I'm thinking if we can help snap people out of their delusion, then we're doing good theism, we're doing good evangelism, we're doing good dawah, as the Muslims would say. So I'm just trying to share this basic information, not expecting it to ever help us catch up with the powers that be, but if anything, just to help put atheism where it needs to be squashed, much less than it's thriving now.
Got you, man, bro. Absolutely amazing. So you've got one more video to show, haven't you, mate?
Okay. So when we're looking at the golden rectangle from the golden spiral, we can see that there's perfect squares formed at each time, or you could say perfect circles. But when we look at the golden spiral, it grows. Each square is a quarter circle. And we know that the Bible describes Earth as having 4 corners, but it describes the heavens as a circle. And we know that squares are finite, where circles are infinite. So we could say the circle represents the metaphysical, squares represent the physical. So when we see it drawn, as we say, the golden spiral grows in quarter circles. This is really important because we have every quarter is a season, every quarter of a year. So here's the 100 Phi or Fibonacci numbers. They go on infinitely, but I've just marked out 100. And if we look at the digital root of each of these numbers, we actually find a 24 infinite number sequence. 24, like there are hours in the day. So there's a hint already in the rate of construction, might be how we constructed the hours in a day, because we've got the first red numbers and then the green shows that they repeat onwards. So 24 number sequence from the digital root. And if we concentrate on the last digit of each of the Phi numbers in the Fibonacci sequence, then we find another sequence, 60 numbers, an infinite 60 number sequence that goes on forever. Like I say, I've only calculated up to 100, but you can check it for yourself up to 1,000, and you'll see it's always the same 60 numbers. Now this 60 number sequence has 4 zeros that are exactly 15 digits apart. So if we draw them around a wheel, like the zodiac wheel, we can see as drawn around with the start in the left. Or if we draw it as a sine wave, we still get the same results, but we're better off working on a wheel because, like you said, the Phi spiral we can see from above like a wheel. Now the 5s also connect in conjunction with the zeros. They're also distanced just a few digits apart, and it gives us 12 sections, like we have 12 hours per day or 12 constellations or disciples. And if we square the circle, like lots of secret societies are obsessed with, we always find the square and the compass squaring the circle. We find that pi appears from the corner right on the decimal place. And if we then acknowledge that the zeros are surrounded with 777s, 999s, 333s, 111s, we could assume that there's 2 cogs here. One cog for the zeros and the other cog for pi, because we notice that the 3-1, next it's 1-7, after that it's 7-9, and after that it's 9-3. So there seems to be something in them. Well, my friend realized that if he turned the pi arm back 180 degrees and the zero arm 90 degrees, it gave us another alignment where now we have the 3s are surrounded by 3s and the 1s are surrounded by 1s, and so on. So from there, he realized he'd gone back 1 step. Now we rotate the 2 arms or cogs back 90 degrees because now they're set together. And we find another pattern emerge, which could be coincidence, but it appears that the 9s around the zeros are now double digits. The 3s are now 2 3s on each side and 2 1s on each side instead of just triplets. So it appears we found the next step. We go another quarter or 90 degrees backwards again, now we can see that the numbers that are surrounding them are the numbers that seem to work well in the original position. My friend found that the original position of the ones looked, in fact, all of the numbers except for 5s and 0s seem to come in at one point. If we just look at number 1, it's as if an arm is coming in, or with a hand spread out, and where the 1 comes in, we can see a gap between the 1s, which is not coloured in. Well, if we look at 4, we can see that 4 comes in also in one point, and then there's just 3 4s at the top. Those 3 4s fill the gap that the 1s left, just like number 2 fills the gap where the 3 is split. So it looks like there's some kind of pattern in the original distribution of the numbers themselves. So when he got to this step in the mechanism, he noticed that these numbers were now aligned, which gives us a 4th cog, the green cog. So with all 4 cogs, we go a quarter rotation back, 90 degrees back counterclockwise, and we find that they're all now in the original position. And from this point, we can acknowledge that every time the pi arm has moved, it seems that the numbers surrounding them flip position, alternate, like electric currents alternate and oscillators and stuff. If we acknowledge that these numbers can change position, now we find that all of the 8s are in line with the 8s, all of the 6s are in line with the 6s, the 2s with the 2s, and the 4s with the 4s, which only leaves one last step, and that's the 5s. The 5s have 2 directions. The first arm or cog is where the 5 is following the number, and the second cog, the 5 is leading the neighbor number. So it looks like we have a clockwise and an anti-clockwise mechanism for the 5s, which could explain why we see clockwise rotation of the northern constellation, the stars around the North Pole, and why we see the Southern Cross with a clockwise rotation when we're looking at the stars in the sky. So we might find that 5s represent the stars above, and that's why we have 2 different rotations in the sky, because our world clock also has 2 rotation. Now this mechanism shows 6 stages. We're now on the 6th stage. The 7th stage could be the day of rest, the end days. Now all of these coincidences, in my mind, prove that Phi works in perfect harmony with pi by design. And the Bible does tell us that as we see in the skies above, we shall see in earth too. So maybe God's will is written in the stars, and life is a manifestation of what's written in the stars. This is all speculation, but we do see lots of similarities, like Saturn being Satan, Venus, the morning star, and the evening star being Lucifer. So maybe numbers and frequencies are just language from arches and angles, which could be archangels. It's all up for debate. But I'm happy to have been able to present this to you.
Wow.
So yeah, we're just scratching the surface, but it definitely seems too many coincidences to be coincidences, because to get numbers, wrap them around a wheel, and then be able to move those numbers and get them all to group up into what looks like their original positions, where they're all in groups. I don't think that that's coincidence. No. And I definitely don't believe that my friend came to this because he's a good mathematician. I'm pretty sure he was blessed with that information. so that he could share it with me, that I could share it with you, and that you can share it with your audience, and that hopefully your audience can add to this and take this further.
It's absolutely amazing. You know, he's definitely divinely led. Like, even with the numbers and the idea, like how that came to him is just, it's just beyond belief. Because even the numbers, and then to have pictured the mechanism as well, and to have made the mechanism, and he's done it so well. So first off, just absolutely, you know, a round of applause to you, friend, and obviously you for presenting it. There's so many questions that I've got for you, Howard. Like, when you were lining up the numbers, I saw a lot of numbers that people see throughout their life. Do you know what I mean? And mean things to them. So the 1111. In a lot of logos, I find the 66. But what I find, instead of it being 666, sometimes there, it's just 66. And then I'll find another 66. But on your diagram, there is the 66066. There was one of those. So it's just linking to so many different things. In terms of micro macro, how can I put this? How they're seeing numbers and how we develop just like a flower and how we grow. We're ultimately going through this ourselves, aren't we? In a roundabout way.
I believe we're looking at a mathematic model of Earth. You know, I don't believe in the globe model. And I don't actually believe in the two-dimensional flat Earth models that people keep showing me, because there's a one or two conundrums with the flat Earth models. There's a lot of conundrums with the globe model. So I've come to the idea that where the Quran talks about there being 7 heavens and likewise for Earth, I think that means there's 7 dimensions to Earth. So if we can't visualize what a 4th dimensional cube looks like, how could we ever visualize a model of Earth? So maybe this has been given to my friend so that we've got a mathematical model of creation that we can maybe work with. It'll resonate with us, like you say, because we're all in it. And if we're all made up of atoms, or whatever atoms are and DNA really is, I would say we're all made up of electromagnetism. And if the fabric of electromagnetism is frequencies, vibrations, numbers, then understanding the beauty behind numbers and understanding that we're part of this beautiful, majestic masterpiece of creation. I just think if you understand where you are, you've got a better chance of understanding who you are. So I don't need to believe in flat Earth, because I'm aware that it has, like I say, a conundrum or two. I think I'm a multi-dimensional earther, and that gives me a lot more pride and a lot more hope and direction, knowing that I count for something. I'm not just lost in space, going without direction. I'm not infinitely small. I count for something. I'm part of this creation, and this creation is perfectly designed, and every little bit is accounted for. So that gives me a lot more happiness and security. So I think what you're saying is right, that if people are aware of this information, they're going to feel more value in themselves, because they'll see that everything has value. Just like the pi sequence, every little zero has a value in it. And it's very interesting that the Bible talks about there being 4 angels on the 4 corners of earth with 4 winds, because when I see the 4 zeros, I can't help but think that maybe they are angels, and they have a very fixed power position in this world to maintain order or whatever. And maybe these other numbers, some of them have gone a bit rogue, but maybe that's all part of the design to give us free will, so that, like you say, there's division and there's infinite complexity and possibility within this system that looks like it's all contained by the 369 cage. So the physicality is maybe contained by 369, but when you can see that numbers are infinite, then obviously the creator is outside of this creation, and we're just seeing if we're, like you said, a simulation, if we're made in God's image, and this is God's imagination, he is the designer, the coder of this simulation. And we're just getting a glimpse into the beauty and majesty of his creation and his omnipresence and all that. So it's just very, very reassuring for a theist. And I think it makes it very difficult for an atheist to say there's no evidence of intelligent design. I literally had a debate with Matt Dillahunty about a month ago, and I should have expected it, but he shocked me to just walk out of the debate saying that I had no evidence and that I'm a loon to present such stuff. And I thought, people like him are always asking for empirical evidence, like scientific. I took him scientific evidence, I took him mathematical proofs, and I even took him geological finds with Mike's work to show that if there's a worldwide flood, then obviously there's God's wrath. If there's, so I had lots of different evidence, and he just said it wasn't evidence and that I'm crazy for calling it evidence. And I feel like that's cognitive dissonance. I feel like that's dismissing information because it conflicts with your beliefs that there is no creator. So I thought, okay, maybe a debate isn't the right format because people are already, very strong in their ways. They're there to win an argument, and the crowd are there to support the person that they're fans of.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe the debate isn't the right scene. It deserves more respect. So I thought by presenting it to people like yourself, I'm going to have a better reception and hopefully a better contribution. I really want more people to get involved in Mike's work. I want more people to get involved in the mathematic models that I've shown from my friend. And I really want more people to get into the conversations of what is this world, without preaching a model, just questioning people's beliefs and asking them if they have any evidence to support it. And if not, maybe it's worthwhile keeping an open mind and keep investigating. Because like you said, these rabbit holes will forever get deeper. The more we learn, the more questions are to ask and to answer. So I feel like we should be happy that we've got this adventure and feel blessed that we've been given this information. So it's a pleasure to share it with you. And I look forward to speaking to you again, and hopefully that some of your audience will contact me with any questions. And if I can't answer them, it gives me a reason to get in touch with my friend to get him involved. Even though he wants to stay anonymous, he'll be so happy that we're having this conversation and that a more open audience are learning about this instead of just dismissing it and discrediting it.
If this audience is one thing, it's definitely open-minded, mate. And all you're doing essentially, mine's all spiritual, and I've experienced God and it all as one in a miraculous, divine way. But no matter who I sing that to and try to explain it in words, and no matter what I create visually, it'll never ring true. What you will offer me and other people like me is that literal physical evidence to my experiences, to the downloads I get, to this person this thing sending me information like I'm downloading numbers in my dreams and it comes out as information. You're giving that physical proof, so I thank you. And I'm pretty sure there's other people out there like me that have just had the experience, and to show this to somebody that's a little bit turned the other way, the physical proof, that there's something divine out there. You can't, as you say, you can't keep saying coincidence forever. My nan's been like, I've had coincidence since I was 5. No. No.
I like to think somewhere in the Bible it says God speaks through his angels. Well, what if angels can be conceptualized as numbers? Mm-hmm. And maybe mathematics is signs from above, because we didn't invent mathematics. It's always been there. we might have invented the symbols. We might, you know, what we call the number 2 and stuff, but 2 is 2. It will always be 2. It always has been 2. So mathematics does seem, like Galileo Galilei said, to be the language that God has created in. So I feel like we mustn't worship numbers, just like we mustn't worship a model, a scientific or earth model, just like we shouldn't worship anything of creation, but we should always look into these things and give worship or grace to the almighty creator of these things, the mastermind of this design and this simulation. So yeah, I'm really happy to share it with you. Anyone out there that might be of use, whether it's to add information or to help make this information digital, please get in touch with me or with Chad, and I'm happy to pay if you can do mates rates, especially.
Mates rates, please.
Yeah.
Howard,
it's for a good cause.
It's definitely for a good cause. Like, it's so promising at the moment. There's so many people doing their own thing. You know, I hope one day we get to talk with Michelle. She's doing her thing. I'm doing my thing. You're doing my thing. But that's just like a small percentage of everyone. And everyone's looking at a different angle of the whole thing and coming up with something absolutely fantastic. So whether you're into maths, whether you're into philosophy, whether you're into geology, like, there's someone that is going to tick your box for you. And that's the beauty of the world and what my platform is. Love and light to all.
Love and light to all.